It started like any ordinary morning, the kind where sunlight drips lazily through half-drawn curtains and the smell of coffee fills the air. The world outside was calm, but something about that morning felt heavy. I remember the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog, and then my phone rang. The screen lit up with a name that made my stomach drop before I even answered. Mrs. Fletcher, Ethan's teacher. Her voice was trembling, and that alone made my pulse quicken. "Mrs. Sanders?" she said, pausing as if trying to gather herself. "I'm so sorry to bother you this early, but something happened today. It's about Ethan and his mother's iPad." My fingers tightened around the phone. My mind scrambled through possibilities. Did he break it? Forget it somewhere? But the tone in her voice, that shaky, fearful tone, told me it was something far more serious. "Is he okay?" I asked quickly, already reaching for my car keys. Yes, he's safe, but I think you should come to the school right now." She hesitated before adding in a whisper that sent a cold chill up my spine. "It's what he showed us. I've never seen anything like it." That was all she said before hanging up. The quiet that followed was deafening. I stood there for a few seconds, my mind blank except for one echoing question. What could a 7-year-old possibly show that would make an adult sound terrified? That was the question that started everything, the loop that would haunt me all day until I learned the truth. I slipped on my coat, grabbed my keys, and stepped outside. The morning air was crisp and sharp, slicing through my nerves. I drove faster than I should have, my thoughts a blur of fear and disbelief. Ethan had always been a gentle boy, shy, thoughtful, the kind who spent hours building Lego castles and talking to his goldfish. What could he possibly have done? The school sat at the end of a quiet suburban street, the kind of place where nothing bad ever seemed to happen. Yet, as I pulled into the parking lot, something about the stillness felt wrong. A group of teachers stood by the door whispering, their faces pale. When they saw me, they exchanged looks. That silent communication people use when something serious has happened, but they don't know how to say it out loud. Mrs. Fletcher stepped forward, clutching an iPad in both hands as if it were something dangerous. "Mrs. Sanders, thank you for coming," she said softly. "Ethan's in the library with the principal. He's shaken up." I could see the strain in her eyes. "Can you please tell me what's going on?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. She nodded toward the iPad. "He brought this to class this morning, said it was his mom's work tablet. During reading time, he started showing the other kids a video he found on it." She swallowed hard, looking down. When I realized what it was, I stopped him immediately. I frowned. "A video? What kind of video?" She looked around as if afraid of being overheard. It's not something a child should have ever seen." Her voice broke slightly. "And the worst part is, it looks like something connected to your daughter's job." My chest tightened. Claire's job? She works for a tech company, not anything like that. But deep down, I knew my daughter had been under enormous stress lately. Late nights, unanswered calls, nervous glances whenever I asked about work. "Please," I said quietly, "show me." Mrs. Fletcher handed me the iPad, her fingers trembling slightly. The screen was dark, smudged with tiny fingerprints. As she tapped it awake, I felt my stomach twist. A video thumbnail glowed faintly on the screen, a recording labeled Project T3, Confidential. The name meant nothing to me, but the word confidential screamed trouble. "Ethan said he found it in a hidden folder while playing games," Mrs. Fletcher continued carefully. "He told the other children it was his mom's work. He didn't understand what he was showing." I took a deep breath, fighting the sudden nausea creeping up my throat. "Where is he now?" I asked. "In the principal's office," she said softly. "He hasn't said much since we stopped him, just kept asking if he did something bad." I closed the iPad, my hand trembling slightly. No, he didn't do anything bad. He's just a little boy." But even as I said it, a part of me felt the icy grip of something much bigger, something his mother had tried to keep buried. As I walked toward the principal's office, I caught sight of Ethan sitting on a small wooden chair, his legs swinging nervously. When he saw me, his face crumpled. "Grandma, am I in trouble?" I knelt in front of him and took his hands. "No, sweetheart, you're not in trouble, but I need you to tell me exactly what happened, okay?" His eyes darted between me and the iPad on the desk. "He was just playing," he said in a small voice. "Mommy said not to use it, but she always looks sad, so I wanted to see what made her sad." He sniffled. "Then I saw a video with her name on it. I thought it was about work. I wanted to show my teacher so she could help Mommy feel better." My throat tightened. The innocence in his explanation was heartbreaking. He wasn't snooping, he was trying to help. But what he'd stumbled upon, that was the real problem. The principal, a tall man with a gentle but serious face, cleared his throat. "Mrs. Sanders, I've seen the video. It's troubling. You should probably take that iPad straight home, and I think your daughter needs to know immediately." I nodded, thanked him, and led Ethan outside. The sun had climbed higher, but the air felt colder. We sat in the car for a long moment, neither of us speaking. He looked at me through the rearview mirror and whispered, "Did I make Mommy lose her job?" That question broke me more than any video ever could. I turned to face him, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "No, baby, you didn't make her lose anything. You just found something you weren't supposed to see, but you didn't mean to. You were trying to help." He gave a small, unsure nod. The loop in my mind tightened. That haunting question from the teacher, the word confidential, the fear in my daughter's eyes lately, it all connected, but I couldn't see the full picture yet. As I started the car, I whispered a silent promise to myself. Whatever this was, I would protect that boy, and I would get to the truth before it destroyed our family.
The drive home was quieter than I expected. Ethan sat in the back seat, his little hands gripping his backpack like it was a lifeline. I could see his reflection in the rearview mirror, his eyes wide and uncertain, a question trapped behind them. I wanted to tell him it would all be fine, that grown-ups knew how to fix things. But I wasn't sure I believed that myself. The iPad on the passenger seat glowed faintly, and it felt like a ticking clock, counting down to something I wasn't ready to face. When we reached the house, the afternoon sunlight streamed through the blinds, cutting the living room into stripes of gold and shadow. I set my purse on the counter and stared at the device. It looked so ordinary sitting there, a thin piece of glass and metal, yet it carried something that had frightened a teacher and frozen a grandmother's heart. Ethan hovered near the doorway. "Grandma?" he whispered. "Am I grounded?" I turned to him, forcing a small smile. "No, sweetheart, you're not grounded, but we're going to be very careful, okay? No talking about what happened at school until Mommy gets home." His shoulders relaxed a little, but I could still see the guilt clouding his small face. As he wandered off to his room, I sat down and opened the iPad again. My hands trembled slightly as I entered Claire's password, the one she'd used since college, her birthday backward. The home screen appeared instantly, filled with folders labeled reports, projects, clients. Nothing strange, nothing suspicious. But then, near the bottom corner, I saw a single folder named simply T3. My heart pounded. That was the name from the video. Project T3. I tapped it open. Inside were 3 video files, all time-stamped within the past month. Each one had a government logo in the corner and a warning: confidential, internal use only. I hesitated. Claire's company was a private tech firm, not government. Why did these videos have federal seals? The first video opened with a dark conference room, voices muffled and distorted. Figures sat around a table, faces blurred. A man's voice said, "This leap can't go public. If it does, we're all finished." Then static. The video cut abruptly. The second one began, showing what looked like drone footage, grainy images of trucks, warehouses, something being loaded in the dark. And then a voice, this time clear. "We're hiding the data here until the next phase." The clip ended. Suddenly, just like the first. I leaned back, my pulse racing. What had my daughter gotten herself into? The words leak, data, and next phase spun through my mind like puzzle pieces that didn't fit together. The front door creaked open. Claire stepped in, looking exhausted. Her makeup was smudged, her hair pulled back in a loose bun. "Hey, Mom," she said, setting down her bag. "Why is Ethan so quiet?" I didn't answer right away. I picked up the iPad and held it out. "We need to talk." She frowned, confused at first, then froze when she saw what I was holding. "Where did you get that?" I said evenly. "Ethan took it to school. His teacher called me. He showed a video. One of these." She sounded terrified. Color drained from her face. "Oh no," she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "Mom, tell me you didn't watch them." "I had to," I said. "You left me no choice." She sank into the couch, her voice barely audible. "Those files weren't supposed to exist anymore. I thought I deleted them." My heart thudded louder. "Claire, what are they? What did Ethan show his teacher?" She looked at me, eyes glistening. "They're part of a government project we were hired to work on last year. We developed data analysis software for tracking global shipments. But during testing, we found something we weren't supposed to see. Shipments with falsified records, hidden destinations, people disappearing into the system." She took a shaky breath. "We reported it to our supervisor, but the files were pulled from the servers overnight. They told us never to speak about it again. Then those videos showed up in my email 2 weeks ago." I stared at her, trying to process. "So you saved them?" "I had to. I couldn't let it go." Her voice cracked. "But if anyone finds out I kept those files, I could lose my job. Or worse." The loop in my mind tightened. That terrified phone call, the teacher's fear, the word confidential. It all made sense now. Ethan hadn't just stumbled onto something. He'd accidentally exposed a secret someone had tried desperately to bury. I felt anger bubble beneath my fear. "Claire, you should have told me. Or someone. You can't hide something like this." "I didn't know who to trust," she said softly. "And now my son could be in danger because of me." I sat beside her, my voice trembling but calm. "He didn't mean any harm. He's a child. But whatever this is, it's bigger than us." For a long moment, we sat in silence. The ticking clock in the kitchen grew intolerably loud. Then I said the words I wasn't sure I should. "We need to go to the police." Her head snapped up. "No, you don't understand. If this goes public, they'll think I leaked it intentionally. My career, Mom. My entire life, it'll be over. I looked at her and saw something I hadn't seen in years. Pure fear. Not the kind that comes from guilt, but the kind that comes from realizing you're trapped. A faint sound broke the silence. Ethan's small footsteps in the hallway. He peeked around the corner, holding his stuffed bear. "Mommy?" he whispered. "Am I mad at you?" Claire rushed to him, kneeling and pulling him into her arms. "No, baby, I'm not mad. You didn't do anything wrong." I watched them, mother and child, tangled in a moment neither could fully understand. And it hit me then. Sometimes, the truth doesn't set you free right away. Sometimes it breaks everything first, so you can rebuild from what's real. That night after Ethan fell asleep, Claire and I sat at the table again. The iPad lay between us, silent but alive, glowing faintly in the dim kitchen light. "Mom," she said quietly, "what should I do?" I reached for her hand. "The right thing," I said softly, "even if it's hard, even if it hurts." Her eyes filled again. "I don't know if I can." I gave her fingers a squeeze. "You already have. You raised a boy who wanted to help his mother." A tear slid down her cheek as she smiled faintly. The connection between us, strained for years, felt like it was beginning to heal through the fear. That night, as I lay in bed, the glow of the iPad haunted me. Somewhere inside it was the truth, buried, fragile, dangerous. I knew one thing for sure. Come morning, we couldn't pretend it wasn't there anymore. And in that quiet darkness, I whispered to myself, "Tomorrow, everything changes." End of section 2. The mystery deepens, the loop tightens, and the emotional connection between generations begins to grow.
Morning sunlight filtered through the kitchen curtains, painting soft gold across the table where the iPad still lay like a sleeping secret. The night had been long and restless. I'd woken up several times, thinking I heard sounds outside, the faint hum of a car engine idling, maybe headlights passing too slowly. Each time I'd convince myself it was nothing, but deep down, I knew something had shifted. The world outside wasn't the same as it had been yesterday. When I walked into the kitchen, Claire was already awake. She was dressed for work, her blazer pressed, her eyes shadowed from lack of sleep. The iPad screen was open in front of her. She didn't look up as I entered. "Mom," she said quietly, "someone tried to access my cloud account last night." A chill crawled up my spine. "What do you mean?" She turned the device toward me. The screen showed a notification. Unauthorized login attempt, 3:12 a.m., location unknown. She exhaled shakily. "They know." Her words hung heavy in the air. "Claire," I said, keeping my voice calm, "we have to protect Ethan first. Take him to school, but make sure he stays away from anything digital. No tablets, no phones. I'll handle the rest." She shook her head, panic flickering in her eyes. "You don't understand, Mom. If they know he saw that video, they might think he still has it." "Then we'll make sure he doesn't," I said firmly. "We delete everything." But before I could reach for the iPad, it buzzed with a new message notification. Claire Foes. The sender's name was unlisted, just a string of random numbers and letters. The subject line read, "You shouldn't have watched that." Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single line of text. "Tell your son to forget what he saw, or the next call you get won't be from his teacher." The room went cold. The kind of cold that isn't about temperature. It's about fear finding a place to live inside you. Claire dropped the iPad as if it had burned her. It clattered across the table. I grabbed her hand before she could panic. "Listen to me," I said, steady and calm. "They're trying to scare you. That means they're afraid too. We still have time to control this." Her eyes darted to mine, desperate for something solid to hold on to. "What do I do, Mom?" "Trust me," I said, forcing confidence I didn't feel. "We'll go step by step. But first, take Ethan to school. Act normal. I'll handle this and find out who sent that message." She hesitated, then nodded. "Please be careful." As she left, I watched the car disappear down the street. I turned back to the iPad. The screen was dark now, reflecting my face, older, more tired, but determined. This wasn't just about a device anymore. It was about my family, my daughter's safety, and my grandson's innocence. I opened the message app and traced the sender's address. It wasn't random at all. It was encoded. Years ago, I'd worked in data entry for a communications firm. I knew enough to recognize a pattern. Whoever this was, they weren't amateurs. They were professionals. And that scared me more than anything. Before I could dig deeper, my phone rang. An unknown number. My stomach clenched. I answered anyway. "Hello?" A man's voice, low and calm. "Mrs. Thompson?" "Yes," I said carefully. "This is Detective Harris with the county police. Your daughter Claire was involved in a car accident." My knees went weak. "What? Is she—" "She's fine," he interrupted quickly. "Just shaken. But there's something unusual. The officers found her car tampered with and a GPS tracker hidden underneath the chassis." The world tilted. My voice was barely a whisper. "A tracker?" "Yes, ma'am. We believe it was placed there recently. We'd like you to come down and give a statement." When I hung up, my heart was pounding so hard it felt like thunder in my chest. It wasn't just about leaked data anymore. Someone was following her, maybe even watching us right now. I grabbed my coat, slipped the iPad into my purse, and drove straight to the station. The detective met me at the door. Tall, early 40s, sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, shaking my hand, "I'm glad you came in. We've been trying to reach your daughter, but her phone's off." "She's with my grandson," I said quickly. "What's going on?" He motioned for me to follow him into a quiet office. "Your daughter's name came up in an ongoing federal inquiry. We can't share details, but it seems she may have had access to files linked to a classified case." I felt the blood drain from my face. "You mean the iPad?" He glanced at me sharply. "What iPad?" I realized my mistake. "Her work one," I said quickly. "It was stolen once. She got it back." He studied me for a long moment before nodding slowly. "If she still has anything connected to that case, she needs to hand it over immediately. People who cross these agencies don't always get second chances." That sentence lingered as I drove home. The loop had closed around us. Teacher, child, mother, now law enforcement. Every step we took brought us closer to danger, not farther from it. When I walked into the kitchen, I found Ethan in the living room watching cartoons. Claire wasn't there yet. I set my purse down, forcing a smile. "Hey, buddy, Mommy told you were brave today." He grinned, gap-toothed and innocent. "Grandma, my teacher said she saw a monster in the tablet." I froze. "A monster?" He nodded, serious. "It was a man with no face. He was talking, but his mouth didn't move. He said, 'Don't look.'" My hands trembled. That video, the blurred faces, the distorted voices, was it possible he'd seen something more? Something we weren't meant to see at all? I knelt beside him, brushing his hair back gently. "It's okay, baby. You didn't do anything wrong." He looked at me, curious. "Grandma, are we in trouble?" "No, sweetheart," I said softly, although my throat ached with the lie. "Everything's going to be fine." That night, when Claire finally returned, she looked pale but determined. "They towed my car," she said quietly. "The detective said they'll call if they find anything else." I nodded. "We can't wait for them, Claire. We need to go somewhere safe. Tonight." She hesitated. "Where?" "I know a place. My late husband's old cabin in the hills. No Wi-Fi, no cameras, just trees and silence." She looked at me for a long time, then nodded slowly. "Okay." As we packed, I slipped the iPad into a small box and taped it shut. I didn't know if I'd destroy it or deliver it to the authorities. All I knew was that whatever was on it had already changed our lives forever. Before we left, I looked around the house one last time. Everything seemed normal. The family photos, the ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator. But I knew the illusion was gone. Once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And as we pulled out of the driveway, Ethan asleep in the back seat, I whispered a silent promise to the night. No matter what it takes, I'll protect them.
The drive up to the mountains felt endless. The road wound between tall pine trees, their shadows slicing across the windshield like dark ribbons. The hum of the tires on the cracked asphalt was the only sound, steady and rhythmic, like a heartbeat trying to calm itself. Claire drove in silence, her hands gripping the steering wheel tight, knuckles pale against the leather. Ethan had fallen asleep hours ago, his small head leaning against the window. The iPad sat sealed in a cardboard box between us, as if even touching it might summon something we weren't ready to face. As dawn broke over the ridge, the cabin came into view, old, wooden, the kind of place that looked like it had seen too many winters but still stood out of sheer stubbornness. The moment we stepped inside, the world felt quieter. No hum of city traffic, no phone signals, no digital noise. Just stillness, an air so clean it almost stung to breathe. For a moment I thought maybe we'd finally outrun the fear. But deep down, I knew fear didn't live in places. It lived in people. We unpacked in silence. Claire lit a small fire in the hearth, her movements sharp and mechanical. I made coffee, trying to hold on to something normal. Ethan wandered to the window, staring out at the fog rolling down the hill. "Grandma," he said softly, "it's whispering." My heart stuttered. "What's whispering, honey?" "The fog," he said, his voice barely a breath. "It says he's still watching." I felt my hands tremble, spilling coffee on the counter. Claire turned sharply. "Ethan, that's enough. It's just your imagination." But his eyes stayed on the glass, unblinking. "He's out there," he whispered. That night, after Ethan had fallen asleep, I found Claire sitting by the fire, staring into the flames. Her face glowed orange and gold, her eyes hollow. "Mom," she said quietly, "I think I know what was on that iPad." I sat down beside her, heart pounding. "Tell me." She hesitated, then exhaled. "You remember when I switched departments last year? I was assigned to handle data from an internal investigation. Nothing major, just background reports. But one of the files, it wasn't supposed to exist. It contained recordings, video and audio from private interrogations. Government ones." I froze. "You mean classified material?" She nodded, tears glimmering in her eyes. "They were supposed to be deleted, but someone kept copies, and they were still linked to my iCloud account. When Ethan took the iPad, he must have opened one by accident." The fire cracked loudly between us, like the sound of a branch snapping in the woods. "Claire?" I said softly. "That means whoever sent that message knows exactly where we are." Her breath hitched. "That's why we came here. But what if we're not the only ones who know about the cabin?" Outside, the night deepened. Wind pressed against the windows, the trees swayed, and somewhere in the darkness, a single owl cried out. It was the kind of sound that made you realize how just small you really are in the world. Hours passed, the fire dimmed to glowing embers. Claire eventually fell asleep on the couch, exhaustion pulling her under. I couldn't rest. Something about Ethan's words, "he's still watching," kept echoing in my mind. I walked quietly to his room. He was curled up under a blanket, peaceful, a faint smile on his lips. But beside his pillow, half hidden under the sheets, was the iPad. My pulse spiked. I had locked that box myself. How had it gotten out? I reached for it, careful not to wake him. The screen lit up before I even touched it. No password, no lock, just an open file, a video still paused on a distorted image. A dark room, a man sitting in a chair, head bowed, a bright light shining down on him. His face was blurred, but there was movement. Someone standing behind the camera, breathing heavily. I hesitated, then pressed play. The voice that came through wasn't human. It was mechanical, altered, as if someone was trying to hide their identity.
You think deleting the truth will erase it. You think hiding will make you safe. My breath caught in my throat. The man in the chair looked up slowly. His face came into focus for a split second, and I recognized him. Detective Harris. The video cut to static. I stumbled back, hand over my mouth. The detective who claimed to protect us, was he part of this? Was he warning us or trapping us? I ran to wake Claire. We have to go, I said urgently. Now. She blinked, disoriented. What happened? They know where we are. That video, it's not just surveillance, it's blackmail. They're using it to silence people. Her face went pale. Then what do we do? Before I could answer, headlights flashed outside the window. Faint, but approaching fast, cutting through the trees like knives. I rushed to the window. A car was climbing the hill, its engine low and deliberate. Claire, I whispered, get Ethan, through the back. She grabbed her son, still half asleep, clutching his blanket. We ran out the back door, our shoes crunching on the frozen grass. The night was sharp with cold, every breath visible. I led them down a narrow trail I knew from years ago. It wound deep into the woods, towards an old ranger station a mile away. Behind us, the car door slammed. Footsteps crunched on gravel. A flashlight beam swept across the cabin's front porch. Go, I hissed. Don't stop. We ran until our lungs burned. Branches scratched at our arms, the sound of the wind almost screaming now. When we finally reached the clearing near the ranger station, I looked back. No lights, no sound, just endless darkness. Claire collapsed onto the grass, clutching Ethan to her chest. Mom, what if this never ends? I knelt beside her, taking her hand. Then we make it end, I said. She looked up, eyes wide. You mean? Yes, I said. We don't hide anymore. Tomorrow, we go to the press. The words felt heavy but freeing, like a chain snapping open. We couldn't fight shadows in silence. The only way to end this was to make sure everyone saw it. I turned to the camera inside my phone, my hands trembling as I opened the recording app. If something happens to us, you'll know why. That moment, I realized the story wasn't just ours. It was bigger, about truth, corruption, and how even a child's innocent mistake could uncover the lies adults tried so hard to bury. If you've ever felt like you couldn't stand up to something bigger than you, remember even small voices can break the silence. And if you want to see what happened next, stay with me, because what came after this, none of us were ready for.
By morning, the fog had thinned, and the mountain stood still and quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The ranger station smelled faintly of pine and dust. An old radio crackled on the shelf, the kind that belonged to another decade. We hadn't slept. The exhaustion set heavy in our bones, but adrenaline kept us moving. Claire was pacing near the window, the first rays of sunlight glinting off her hair. Ethan sat in the corner, quietly playing with a toy car someone had left behind. For the first time in hours, I saw him smile, and for a brief moment, it reminded me why we had come this far. I found a phone on the wall, one of those ancient rotary types that might still connect to the main line. My fingers hesitated above the dial. "Who are you calling?" Claire asked. "The only person left who might actually listen," I said. "The press." I dialed a local newsroom number from memory, an old contact I'd once worked with when I freelanced years ago. To my surprise, someone picked up almost immediately. "This is Kate Daniels," the voice said, brisk and alert. "Kate, it's Margaret Thompson. You don't know me well, but you need to hear what I have." There was a pause. Then her tone softened. "Talk to me, Margaret." I took a deep breath. It's about a government data leak. One that involves classified interrogation footage. My daughter's been targeted because of it. We have proof. Another pause. Longer this time. "Where are you?" "Somewhere safe. But not for long. If I send you the files, can you make them public immediately?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "If what you're saying is true, yes.
But you need to understand, this won't just disappear once it's out there. You'll be in the spotlight. I glanced at Claire and Ethan. We already are, I said quietly. We just didn't choose the stage. I hung up and turned toward my daughter. Her face was pale, but there was a strength in her eyes now, a kind of steady calm that hadn't been there before. Mom, she said softly, if we do this, there's no going back. I nodded. Sometimes going back isn't what saves us. Sometimes the only way to survive is to tell the truth, no matter who hurts. We powered up the iPad one last time. My hands trembled as I attached the files, compressed them into a single folder, and uploaded them to the journalist's secure line. A progress bar filled slowly across the screen. 10%, 35%, 70%. My pulse matched every tick upward. And then, just as it reached 100%, the screen flickered. A final message appeared in white letters against a black background. You shouldn't have done that. The iPad went dark. For a long time, no one spoke. The silence felt alive, like the calm before a storm you could feel, but not yet see. Then, outside, the faint rumble of engines broke through the morning stillness. Claire rushed to the window. 3 black SUVs were snaking up the dirt road. My chest tightened. They found us. Ethan clung to Claire's leg, eyes wide. Mommy? She pulled him close. It's okay, baby. Grandma and I are right here. I turned to her. Get to the back. There's a hatch in the floor. It leads to the old cellar. Hide there until it's over. She shook her head. I'm not leaving you. Claire, please, I said firmly. You have to protect Ethan. That's all that matters now. For a moment, she looked at me. Really looked. The way she did when she was a little girl, trusting that her mother could fix anything. Then she nodded. I love you, Mom. I love you too, I whispered. The moment she disappeared into the cellar, I turned toward the door. The engines had stopped. Footsteps crunched on gravel. Someone knocked. 3 slow, deliberate taps. When I opened the door, a man stood there in a dark coat, flanked by 2 others. He wasn't wearing a badge. His expression was polite, almost kind. Mrs. Thompson, he said smoothly, we're here for the device. It's gone, and the files are already public. His jaw twitched. That was a mistake. Maybe, I said, meeting his eyes. But it was the right one. He studied me for a long moment. Then, to my surprise, he smiled faintly. You're braver than most, he said. For your sake, I hope that bravery doesn't cost more than you can afford. He turned and walked back toward the cars. Within minutes, the sound of engines faded down the road until the forest swallowed it whole. When the silence returned, it was complete. Not fearful this time, but clean, like the world had been rinsed of lies. I opened the hatch, and Claire climbed out, tears streaking her face. What happened? I said softly. They're gone, and the story's not ours anymore. Hours later, the headlines hit every screen in America. Leaked footage suggests government cover-up, whistleblower source unknown. Claire's name wasn't mentioned, neither was mine. The truth had been freed, but our lives would never be the same. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, I sat outside with Ethan. He was drawing in the dirt with a stick, humming to himself. I watched him, the way children could still find joy in a world adults had made so heavy. Ethan, Grandma, he said suddenly, is the bad man gone now? I smiled faintly. For now, I said. But remember something, sweetheart. Bad people hide in shadows because they're afraid of the light. As long as you keep telling the truth, they'll never win. He nodded solemnly, like he understood more than his year should allow. That night, I wrote everything down. Every call, every fear, every moment of courage. Because stories, when told honestly, become more than memories. They become warnings. And if you've ever stumbled upon something you weren't supposed to see, if you've ever wondered whether one voice can make a difference, let this be your answer. It can. It always can. Click, Subscribe for more stories that reveal the heart behind the headlines. Stories of family, secrets, and courage that define what it really means to be human.